Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Triple Threat Show. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is a beautiful Tuesday, January 20th. A little bit cold outside on the ground, but that makes it all the better. A new national champion has been determined in the college football world. We'll break that down as the Indiana Hoosiers raise the trophy for the first time, the first 16-0 season since Yale, all the way back in the 1800s. We'll break down their story, how they got here, and what this team compares to all time. Then we will take a look back to the NFL as the coaching carousel continues to spin. As more teams continue to buy tickets to get on the ride, a couple teams are getting off of it. The Dolphins and the Titans both getting off of the coaching carousel. They found their new leading man. We'll break those guys down, talk about whether or not it was the right hire. Some big news out of the NBA yesterday, some unfortunate stuff and some pretty fortunate stuff. We'll start with the bad, finish with the good. Jimmy Butler tears his ACL and all-star starters are announced. We'll break down all of that and more. But let's start off with the big story of the day, that being the national title and the Indiana Hoosiers taking it home. What a season, what a game, what a performance. Of course, they seal it with the interception of Carson Beck. That was the key. The Miami Hurricanes had to play near perfect football, and they did. They did until the very, very end when they were driving under a minute to go. A slightly underthrown football leads to a turnover, leads to an Indiana victory. Fernando Mendoza didn't have his greatest game statistically, but this is where he found his Heisman moment. People, when talking about him getting his Heisman, they said he never had his moment. They point to Penn State and they say, well, that's a Heisman moment, but Penn State, they kind of suck this year, so you don't want that to be your Heisman moment. But how about in the national championship, bloodied lip after taking a hit, getting back up, not saying anything about it in the first quarter. Then in the fourth quarter, 4th and 5, you take a QB draw up the middle by yourself, break a tackle, dive into the end zone, off the ground fully. Hit again. He took a beating today. Held on to the football, was not even a question, secures the win for the Indiana Hoosiers. The Indiana Hoosiers, who started this season as statistically the worst team in college football history. The Indiana Hoosiers, who did not have any success on the football field. The Indiana Hoosiers, who were a basketball school, now perfect in college football. The Indiana Hoosiers now own the last undefeated college football season and the last undefeated college basketball season. This is insane. The Hoosiers are at the top. They've never been more at the top. The University of Miami still had a very good run, and I want to highlight them in a little bit, but I do want to talk more about this. This is the story that has been covered for a while. This plucky group of Indiana guys coming out of nowhere. This older group that had been overlooked from these super-powered schools for a long time, now coming together under head coach Curt Cignetti and winning a national championship. Curt Cignetti, Google him. He wins, right? He goes out there. He showed some emotion. Famously, not a guy that shows a lot of emotion. He had to crack a smile when winning that national championship. Good vibes all around Miami. Good vibes all around Indiana, in Miami, I should say. While that other locker room, so close, could not quite get over the hump. They kept that game within a margin, one score for just about the entire game. I do want to shout out Mark Fletcher because he, to me, when I watch him run, looks like a mini Derrick Henry. He's not going to be that same guy that Derrick Henry is running over guys, but the way that he runs the ball, the way that he stands, he is a guy that I think could be really great at that next level. He had 2 touchdowns in this one, keeping them in the game pretty much single-handedly. Malachi Toney scored the other touchdown. Malachi Toney, very good at football. He is a guy that will continue to be a weapon at Miami. The question for Miami when they reload, who's going to be quarterback? Because Carson Beck is gone, most likely for the NFL draft, where I expect he'll go somewhere in the 4th-ish round, maybe the 5th, somewhere late day 2, early day 3 kind of situations. This is what Miami does. They got Cam Ward. He goes number 1 overall. Then they go get Carson Beck. They go all the way to the championship. Now the rumors are they go out and they get Darian Mensah, who I love Darian Mensah. I think that would be a huge get for them, but there's complications with the NIL. That's a discussion for another day. Celebration in Indiana, celebration in Bloomington. They deserve all of their flowers. Curt Cignetti deserves all of his flowers. I said we'd stack up this team all time. And while I don't think they're quite in that conversation to be the greatest team of all time, I don't think they're up there with your 2019 LSUs. I don't think they're up there with some of your Nick Saban Alabama teams of recent years. I don't think they're up there with some of those Georgia teams that won it all. But this is one of the greatest stories that we have ever seen. This is still a great football team, of course. They went undefeated and they won the national championship. That's not to be overlooked. But this is one of the greatest stories in college football. This is the greatest turnaround in college football history. This is what you look at and you say, wow, this is a movie script. And people have been saying that for really this entire postseason run. But the fact that they cap it off with their quarterback, their Heisman winning quarterback, who was overlooked from Miami, wanted to go to Miami from Miami, was denied a walk-on spot, went all the way to Cal, performed over there with the Bears, got them into their national spotlight, hosted game day over there, gets the attention of Curt Cignetti at Indiana. They bring him over. He wins a Heisman Trophy for a guy that was a 2-star and could not get a walk-on spot at the U, beats that team that he so badly wanted to play for in his home stadium, in his hometown, in front of his friends and family. You literally could not write a better script. This is an Indiana team that deserves all of their flowers, all of their praise. It's just a beautiful story here. Lots of guys that were overlooked. The 13 guys from JMU, including Mikael Kamara, who gets that punt block that really helps seal the game. You have a lot of big plays from not just JMU transfers, which I'm going to highlight because I am a JMU grad here, but not just JMU transfers, but just the guys that they're able to pick up. This is a veteran squad, a squad that might not have had the most success at their previous landing spots, but they all come here to Indiana. They have a perfect season. They wash that slate away in what for many of them is the final year of college football that they're going to play. There's going to be some NFL talent on this team, but when you go stack for stack between Miami and that Indiana Hoosiers team, the Hoosiers have maybe 3 or 4 players that are going to be in the NFL. We're talking D'Angelo Pons on the outside. We're talking Fernando Mendoza at quarterback, who, even though he's played really great all season, I'm still not convinced he's going to be a great quarterback in the NFL. He's got some talent, he's got the moxie, and he's got the attitude for it, but I don't know if his athleticism is going to translate. We will see. I could be wrong about him. You're talking about a guy like Elijah Surratt, who I think could go in the 3rd-ish round. He's got really great hands. Outside of him, you could get a couple players on that defense. Aiden Fisher could probably join him. But this is an Indiana team that's not laden with NFL talent. There's maybe one first round pick on this team, and that's Fernando Mendoza. There's not another first round pick on this football team. But when you go to the other side, when you go to Miami, you're looking just on that defensive line, 2 first round picks. You're looking at Carson Beck, who's probably going to go somewhere in the NFL draft. You're looking at Malachi Toney, who, while he can't get drafted this year, is going to be a weapon in the NFL offensively. Mark Fletcher is going to play in the NFL. Right, this is a team that has so much NFL talent. This is a team that is really, really great at recruiting and has those blue bloods, those 5 stars, has those guys that are going to make the NFL. Well, Indiana just has a team, and I think that's really important to keep in mind, the team aspect of it, because a lot of time in college football, and really in a lot of different sports, we take for granted the ability to work together as a team, which is maybe the most important. You can go out, and we see it so many times. This team on paper should be so good. They fizzle out. This team on paper should be the best. It just doesn't work out. You can go out and you can get the biggest names. You can get the guys that undoubtedly are game changers and elite players. But if they don't work together as a team, if they can't get behind your message, if they don't want to work together, that team is not going to work. And that Indiana team is the definition of a team working together, not just one player sticking out, a team working together, them all putting their all into this season, putting their all into this year. This is the story of the Indiana Hoosiers. This is the importance of working together as a team, and this is one of the greatest stories that we, or at least I, have ever seen on a sports field. Really, in general, not just college football, but sports in general. What an incredible story for Indiana. They deserve, again, all of the flowers you can possibly give them. Congratulations to Curt Cignetti. Congratulations to the Indiana Hoosiers. They are your 2025-26 college football national champions. Hopefully they continue this run. They had a really great portal class, but shout out to all the guys here. They deserve everything. But I'd love to hear your thoughts here. Indiana wins the Natty. Where do they rank all time? Where do they rank as far as one of the better teams? And how does this story rank here? People keep saying it's a movie. I do expect it to be a movie pretty soon. By soon, I mean in the next 25 years here. It's going to be, at the very least, a 30 for 30 on ESPN. Should be a really good tale to share. And I'm looking forward to the future for Indiana and for college football. What a magical season that college football was. Lots of highs, lots of lows, lots of controversies, but at the end, the best team in the nation was the best team in the nation, and the Indiana Hoosiers raise the national championship trophy. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention over to the NFL. 2 new head coaches have new homes, that with the Dolphins and with the Titans. We will talk about if those hires were the right ones, what they bring to their squads, and much more coming up next here on the Triple Threat Show. Welcome back to the Triple Threat Show. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is a beautiful January 20th here on the Triple Threat Show. A little bit cold outside, but when it's cold, we come outside and we watch the best sports. The Indiana Hoosiers have won the national championship game, but the NFL coaching carousel continues to spin. More teams buying their ticket of admission to get on that ride. The Bills recently, yesterday, we talked about that on our show, where they might go, but 2 teams are ready to hop off. They've done enough spinning, and now the Dolphins and the Titans have their new leading man. The Dolphins, the first one off the block, so we'll talk about them first. Jeff Hafley, the defensive coordinator, I should say former defensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers, now the leading man for the Miami Dolphins. This is an interesting move. There's lots of head coaching candidates out there, but the big fish are all off the board, right? Mike Tomlin is not coming back to coach. He's pretty much said that, although I think there's a chance the Bills might be able to convince him to come back with how good of an opening that one is. Being able to coach Josh Allen is hard to pass up. You have John Harbaugh off the board, which a lot of the prevailing thought was they fired Mike McDaniel so they could convince John Harbaugh to come coach in Miami. That did not work. He goes up to the Big Apple, joins the New York Giants. Kevin Stefanski, the other big fish, he goes down to Atlanta. Does not want to go down to Miami. The offense is just better in Atlanta. There's more reason to be excited over there when you join that Atlanta squad. This is an interesting spot for Jeff Hafley because it's not like this roster is really in a position where they're going to be able to compete right now. It's not like this roster is in a position where they can just snap their fingers, get the right coach, and they'll be well on their way. They're burdened by a huge contract to Tua Tagovailoa. Tua, of course, signed that near $55 million a year contract a couple seasons ago and has not quite lived up to it. He's not been able to stay on the field, and when he is on the field, he has not been that guy. He doesn't have the weapons, with Tyreek Hill taking a big step back, Jalen Waddle unable to stay healthy. This team just doesn't have the guys that Tua needs to be successful, and so they move off of him at the end of the season. He still is on the books there for a while, though, and they move off of head coach Mike McDaniel. There's a lot of reasons to be excited about this Dolphins team. They have a high pick. They're not taking a quarterback, but there are reasons to look forward because there are other teams that are looking to move off of quarterbacks that have a lot of money and are making a lot of money. You can look at the Arizona Cardinals. I do think this is going to happen, that Tua to Arizona and Kyler to Miami. And if that happens, this Miami team, like overnight, looks a lot different. You look at that running game with Kyler Murray and with Devon Achane, that is a terrifying backfield right there. Throw in Ollie Gordon for a little bit of power. You still have Jalen Waddle to throw the ball to. Darren Waller is a pretty great tight end when he's able to stay on the field. We saw his ability to play in the red zone, especially last season. There are some reasons to be excited. You have some pieces on defense. Bradley Chubb, when he's on the field, is one of the best. They trade away Jalen Phillips. They've lost some pieces recently. They also lose Javon Holland in the offseason as well. But Hafley's going to come in and try his best. The reason that I'm a little bit less excited about this move than other ones is Hafley is a guy that, to me, needs the talent. We saw how bad that Packers team was when they lost Micah Parsons. When they had Micah Parsons, when you can design around a game wrecker like Micah Parsons, this team is very, very different. That defense with Jeff Hafley was very different. When you have a guy that can just demand a lot of attention, you can just go and make the other team's offense uncomfortable because Micah Parsons is that special of a player. But when you don't have Micah Parsons, when you rely too heavily on one player, like Jeff Hafley did, you see how that defense falls apart. They have some clear weaknesses. They really did up in Green Bay, but this is not a defense in Miami that has the same star power. They don't have a guy at safety like Xavier McKinney. They don't have a guy up front like Micah Parsons. They don't have that guy that's going to come in and be the difference maker for this team. This is just a Dolphins team that has a pretty solid linebacker in Jordan Brooks, one who I think should have been an all-star. This is the Dolphins team that has, a couple of weapons on defense, but it doesn't have that game breaker. We saw how much that defense struggled this season with a pretty solid defensive coordinator. Bringing in a defensive coach here doesn't make a lot of sense. I know you just moved off of an offensive head coach, but Jeff Hafley to me doesn't feel like the greatest leader of men either. I just feel like there were better options out there. We just saw Sean McDermott get fired. I think if you were able to bring him down to Miami, that would have been a really good landing spot for him. McDermott is a guy that I think could win just about anywhere, but McDermott is a guy that also has been able to do more with less, which is what the Miami Dolphins are working with right now and what the Dolphins are going to continue to work with until they move off of that Tua contract, because that contract is just handcuffing them to a not great roster. They're spending so much on a quarterback that's not even going to play for them. It is just going to cause more and more problems for this team moving forward. Jeff Hafley seems like a meh hire to me. The other ones I've been really gung-ho on, right? I'll give my grades out, my way too early grades, and we'll go over them once every head coaching position had been filled. But John Harbaugh gets an A for me. I think that is the best landing spot for him. Kevin Stefanski gets an A for me as well. That's also a good spot for him. He has all the weapons he needs. He has good ownership. He's not going to have to deal with whatever was going on in Cleveland this time. Kevin Stefanski, a really good hire. And Jeff Hafley over here, this just feels like a C to me. This just feels like a hire that, yeah, I guess. He's a guy that's led before. This doesn't feel like a hire that's going to push the Dolphins in the right direction. I would have held on to Mike McDaniel if I knew they were going to replace him with Jeff Hafley. This move just does not move me at all. The other side of the ball, though, because there were multiple head coaches that were hired here, as the Dolphins not only bring in Jeff Hafley, but the Titans also, at the very crack of dawn last night, they bring in a guy in Robert Saleh. Now, Robert Saleh is going to be a really interesting name, and I'm curious to see what the rest of the media thinks about this hire here, because he is undoubtedly undoubtedly one of the best defensive coordinators in the game. And when he got his opportunity to be the head coach for the New York Jets, that defense was elite. People forget that defense was elite. It really was in that first season. They won a lot of games. Then they go get Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers has issues with the team. He says, allegedly, again, none of this has ever been confirmed, but allegedly, he says, Robert Saleh, I want you out of here. And the Jets owner listens, gets Robert Saleh out of there immediately. And when I say immediately, I mean immediately. That defense falls off a cliff. You go from one of the best defenses in the league to, at best, a league average defense with all of the same players. It's not like personnel changed. It's just Robert Saleh walking out the door. So what does that tell me? We saw it in this year with the 49ers as well. Even when you don't have that star power, which I think is the thing that Jeff Hafley needs, this is a guy that can coach a great defense. This is a guy that can get his guys up, force turnovers, even if he's not going to be able to get after the quarterback. He's going to be able to create interceptions and fumble, even when he doesn't have the greatest secondary players or the greatest linebackers. That is the most important thing when you don't have the talent. Can you be opportunistic? That's why we talk about teams like the Bears that create turnovers. That's why we talk about teams like the 49ers, who, if you look at the numbers, their defense was kind of bad this season. Like, they lose all of their best pieces. They don't have Nick Bosa. They don't have Fred Warner. And yet their defense was doing enough to keep them in these games. Now, obviously, it fizzled out at the end. They gave up a lot of points to the Seattle Seahawks there. But this is a team, and this is a defensive coordinator, now head coach, that is going to get every single drop of talent out of that defense. He's going to wring it out of you if he needs to. He is going to make that team work, and he's going to make that team better. You have Cam Ward on the offensive side of the ball, who looked really good, especially down the stretch. I know his numbers aren't necessarily eye-popping, but Cam Ward deserves a lot of hype and a lot of respect for what he was able to do without a real wide receiver one. Calvin Ridley is not a realistic wide receiver one in the NFL, and he didn't even make it through this whole season, which, I mean, he's a solid weapon to have, but he hasn't been the same since he took that year off for mental health and for gambling. So this is a team that needs to get the offseason right, but they are off to a great start by bringing in Robert Saleh. He is a guy, like I said, that is going to get the most out of that defense, and that is a defense that needs to be gotten the most out of, because if they could hold their opponents to like 24, 27 points per game, the Titans are going to win a game or two, because Cam Ward is going to make something happen as long as they get a wide receiver, which I expect them to do in this draft, a draft class that is loaded with wide receiver talent. Who knows? Maybe they even go heavy for a guy like George Pickens, who would get the ball a lot. And as long as you can promise that he gets the ball a lot, George Pickens would be a pretty good addition. You just can't sign him and then not give him the ball, because then he'll throw a tantrum and it'll cause problems. Maybe not the greatest guy to have in your locker room for a rebuilding team, but he would be very, very talented. It's just unfortunate that he can't get his mental side straight, because otherwise he would be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, George Pickens would. So he's going to get paid this offseason after what he did in Dallas. And the Titans, I think, would be a really interesting landing point. But 6 head coaching spots still available. 4 are off the board. I gave my grade for the other one. This one, I'm going to give a B. Again, I don't think this is quite a knock out of the park here, but this is a move that I do see the vision in. This is a move that I do like. There's still that one little inkling of thought in my head that we just saw this fail with a bad team with the Jets. Is it really going to work over there with the Titans, a Titans management team that is not necessarily known for being the most patient? They've fired head coach, GM, head coach, GM, head coach, GM, back-to-back years, or however many years in a row. They just can't keep a regime together. They need to commit to something. They need to give somebody time. Now, of course, this year it's time to fire the GM if they're going to fire anybody, but I don't think they need to do that. I understand you want to make something happen. I understand you want to get to the playoffs, but you moved off of a great head coach in Mike Vrabel, and that team has never been the same. You need to be patient with a guy in Robert Saleh, who doesn't have the greatest talent around him, needs time to build a team, needs time to build his team, needs the resources because of that. And this sounds a lot more like an owner grade because it kind of is. This is a team grade. Bring in the head coach. They need to understand they need to be patient because I think Saleh could be a great head coach, but I'm not ready to give him that A yet because I just don't know if it's going to work for sure. Give me a B. I really do like this move for the Titans. I don't like the move for the Dolphins. Jeff Hafley, there were better options out there. There really were. I would have preferred them to bring back Anthony Weaver, who's their current defensive coordinator, who's interviewing for head coaching jobs. If you're going to get a defensive guy, there were better options out there. Bring in Brian Flores. I know you can't bring in Brian Flores. Bring in Jonathan Gannon, who just flamed out in Arizona. Look, there's better options than Jeff Hafley. I just can't get over that move. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think the Dolphins made the wrong decision. But only time will tell. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Who do you have winning this coaching carousel so far? What are your grades for these coaches going forward? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention to the NBA. Some good news and some bad news in the NBA last night. Jimmy Butler tears his ACL. We'll start with the bad. We'll talk about the future for the Warriors, for Steph Curry, and for a guy that's about to turn 37 in Jimmy Butler, what his recovery might look like and if he'll be back after this gruesome injury. We'll be back on the Triple Threat Show. Welcome back to the Triple Threat Show. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is a beautiful Tuesday. It's not a Monday, January 20th, here in the cold of Virginia for me. We have a lot to cover. We've just finished the two big, happy stories of the day. We talked about the Indiana Hoosiers finishing off their perfect season, the first team since Yale in the 1858 season to go 16-0 in college football. That is a crazy accomplishment for Curt Cignetti and those Indiana Hoosiers over there. We talked about the new head coaches in the NFL, Jeff Hafley in Miami and Robert Saleh, a new head coaching option for him in Tennessee. All four of the head coaches that have been hired have former coaching experience in the NFL at the head coaching level. We're going to turn our attention to the NBA, though. I've been teasing it all day. There's good news and there's bad news. We're going to start with the bad. end with the good. The bad news from last night, brutal injury news for the Warriors and for Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler tears his ACL at 36, going on 37. He'll turn 37 in September. This is the kind of injury that you feel could be career ending, which is unfortunate because Jimmy Butler is one of those great players. You talk about motor, that is Jimmy Butler. You talk about a playoff riser, that is Jimmy Butler. You talk about a guy that is going to fill the role that you need, take over when you need, that is Jimmy Butler. You look at his career. His career so far, he has been incredible, especially this season. He has been really good as well. You look at just his three-point shooting percentage in 38 games. He's playing 31 minutes a game still. That's still ridiculous. 51% from the field, 37% from three. This is a guy that is playing great basketball right now, and it really is brutal to see him not be able to go out there again, averaging 20 points per game on this Warriors squad, where he has been that number two for Steph Curry. Jimmy Butler, 37. Steph Curry also going to be a little bit older after this season. This feels like the end for the Warriors dynasty. They have been trying so hard to get Steph one more ring. They make a big trade for Jimmy Butler, give him an extension. After midway through last season at the trade deadline, it's not able to get them over the hump. Rumors are they're looking to buy again. Rumors surrounding a guy like LeBron James to come in and play with Steph Curry, which they've always been rumored to want to do. But now that Jimmy Butler tears his ACL at age 36, again, 37 in September, I don't know if he comes back. I really don't. Jimmy Butler is one of those players that's going to be a fringe Hall of Famer because he has been, just absolutely amazing. A 5-time All-NBA player, 6-time All-Star, 5-time All-Defensive player. This is a guy that has willed teams to the championship when you're talking about his time on the Heat. This is a guy that has been just the guy when you need him to be. I don't know if it's quite enough to be in the Hall of Fame right now, but you look at some similar guys, Paul Pierce, as far as their career goes, similarity scores on Pro Basketball Reference. You're looking at guys like Anthony Davis. You're looking at guys like LaMarcus Aldridge, guys that are probably going to be Hall of Famers, but I could also see it the other way. But that's taking away from what he's done this season. This has been, this is just a brutal injury for the Warriors because the Warriors are not a team that's necessarily out of the race. Steph Curry is still having a really great season, right? Steph Curry is still having a season that you can build around. They, of course, have the drama with a guy like Jonathan Kuminga asking out here. He could slide in and he could take that starting role from Jimmy Butler as close to a seamless transition as you could expect. The Warriors sitting at 25-19 in a pretty stacked Western Conference. They're in that play-in tournament right now. So they're at a point where if they wanted to tank, they could say, you know what? Jimmy Butler's done. We're done. Steph, what do you want to do? Because that's going to be the question. Do you want Steph to go out? Does Steph want them to go out and trade, make one more big push, which is probably going to require them to get rid of a guy like Jimmy Butler, who, let's be honest, is not going to play another game for this Warriors team. Right? He's not playing all of this season, and he's probably not playing all of next season. There's a chance that this forces him to retire. Now, he still can get traded. Again, you're going to need his permission, and there's going to need to be a team that's willing to take on that salary, because that is a lot of money for a guy that's not going to play for you in Jimmy Butler. And I think that's going to be a real tough trade. You're going to have to move off a lot of first-round picks. And I don't know how much long Steph Curry has, but once Steph Curry is gone, this team is falling off of a cliff deep down into the abyss where they were before Curry, and they're going to be near that top of the draft every single year. Curry is that special of a player. It's up to him. I haven't heard reports of what he wants to do, but it certainly does make this Jonathan Kuminga thing a whole lot more interesting. Where do the Warriors go from here? Well, if they can convince Kuminga to drop the beef with Steve Kerr and that organization, and they can get him onto that starting lineup and he can play up to his potential, this team looks a lot better in the short term. At least it looks like they have that whole patch. You can't fix a leaky ship with band-aids, but that's what Kuminga would be. He would be fixing it with band-aids. Steph Curry still wants them to go all in. It's going to be tough because they don't have that money to spend. And again, I don't think you're going to be able to move Jimmy Butler for a lot. You probably have to move off a guy like Draymond, who has been the heart and soul of that Warriors team. I know Curry's been the star, he's been the engine, but the heart of that Warriors team, the drumbeat of that team, has been Draymond Green for the entire time he's been there. And that also might mark the end of the Warriors dynasty. Are there players that still want to go here? Are there teams that are willing to trade with the Warriors, willing to give Steph a player one more shot? Again, the big name there that kind of sticks out, LeBron James. He's had a pretty great season for a guy in year 23 who's over the age of 40. This is ridiculous what LeBron is doing. We have this conversation every year. I don't know if this is LeBron's final year. He got a special patch, which makes me think this kind of is his final year, but his other son, is 1 year away from potentially being in the NBA. He's still got the juice, it looks like, and I haven't heard him go on any kind of retirement tour. I would expect him to do kind of what Kobe did and announce his retirement tour one season before he has to go out and actually retire. That way he gets that fanfare, which I would appreciate. I think it'd be really cool to give that fanfare for LeBron, but there were rumors, of course, at the beginning of the season that he wanted to get traded, that he wanted the Lakers to show him something, and that Lakers team, they've been ice cold as of late. You talk about a Lakers team that's really struggled, 5-5 in their last 10. Their defense has really been bad. It really has been. Luka Doncic not bringing that defensive effort. The rest of that team, when you have defenders out there, they can't score. Marcus Smart is not a guy that can put up points on the offense, right? Their center position is brutal. They're not putting effort out there like they were in the beginning of the season. They've fallen from near the top of the West all the way down to that 6th seed. They're tied with the Phoenix Suns. They do have the tiebreaker because they have one less loss. They also have one fewer win, but that loss is the thing that is the most important in that standings. By win percentage, they've got them by 5 points, both 9.5 games back of the Oklahoma City Thunder. But what's next for the Warriors? It feels like a fire sale. It really does. I don't expect Curry to get traded. He's going to stay with the Warriors until he's done. But I do expect Kuminga to be traded now. I think there was a chance they held on to him if they were trying to compete. They've done that the last couple of years. I think there's a chance they move off of pods. Again, this is all going to be pending Steph Curry's approval. Is Curry going to be okay with them selling at the deadline, or is he going to demand that they buy? That's going to be the interesting thing. Does he care about the long-term future of the Warriors, or does he want to give one more push for a title, which, let's be honest, even if they get one more push, this Warriors team is not good enough to win a title in how good that West is. They're getting swept by the Thunder. They're getting gentlemen swept, maybe even swept by the Spurs. A healthy Nikola Jokic rolls over this team. Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves, they don't give this team a chance. We saw this team go 7 games against the Houston Rockets last year. This is a worse Warriors team and a better Rockets team when they're fully healthy. The Rockets probably win that in 6. That's 5 teams ahead of them. That puts them probably at best 6th in the West when they're playing at full strength. And they're not playing at full strength. They lose Jimmy Butler, which I'm curious how far they're going to tumble now. They're already behind teams like the Lakers, who I think they would beat in a series. They're already behind the Suns, who that would be a good one, but I think the Suns actually take that. They're ahead of the Blazers. The Blazers have been a weird team. The Clippers are red hot. They're climbed back into the play-in situation here about halfway through the NBA season right now. So there are a lot of ways to look at this, really. We are about halfway through the season. The NBA trade deadline is right around the corner. They need to make their decision. But Jimmy Butler will not play the rest of the year. A torn ACL, brutal injury for him. I don't know if he's coming back. And that really is the sad part. I think the Warriors are just about done. I would honestly expect them to sell Kuminga and kind of stand pat, let Steph Curry go off into the sunset here. Maybe they can swing a trade to go out and get a guy that Steph Curry likes, but I just don't think they have the juice to do it anymore. They gave away all their assets for that final push with Jimmy Butler, and now Jimmy Butler is done in an unfortunate situation. This is brutal for the Golden State Warriors. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What does the future of the Golden State Warriors look like? Do they have a chance moving forward in the NBA? I just don't think so. They're not getting out of the West, even if they do reload here. I think this is it for Steph Curry and the Warriors as they call it quits on kind of a whimper here with Jimmy Butler tearing his ACL. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the All-Star starters are announced. Like I said, I promised we'd finish on an up note, not on a down note here. We'll talk about the All-Star starters, some snubs, and what I thought of the teams overall. That's coming up next here on the Triple Threat Show. Welcome back to the Triple Threat Show. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is a beautiful, it's a Tuesday. It's still a Tuesday, guys. Tuesday, January 20th here. Feels like a Monday. Yesterday, a national holiday, and the Indiana Hoosiers won the national championship. So a holiday all around the country here. We talked about that early on in the show. If you are just tuning in, you missed it. The Indiana Hoosiers are perfect. The completed story. They have done it with a bookend national championship, a Heisman moment, a huge moment for Mendoza jumping into the end zone, a blocked punt from a JMU transfer in Mikel Kamara. A lot of good stuff from Curt Cignetti and this Indiana Hoosiers team as they win and lift the national championship trophy. We also talked about new head coaches in the NFL. The Dolphins and the Titans both find their new leading man over the weekend. We talked about that. They were both hired yesterday. We talked about the bad news in the NBA. Now we get the chance to talk about the good news because, again, it's not all doom and gloom. We like to talk happy here on the Triple Threat Show, and there is plenty to like on the Triple Threat Show. Let's start with the NBA. We just talked about bad news. Jimmy Butler tears his ACL, but the NBA All-Star starters have officially been announced. Let's start off in the Western Conference because this team is nasty. Luka Doncic at the 1, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at the 2, Stephen Curry makes his All-Star team yet again, Nikola Jokic and Victor Wembanyama. One thing, and I do think that they got this right in the West. I think overall they did a pretty good job with the All-Star starters, but the one thing, no LeBron James. LeBron James has been an all-star starter, has been in an all-star game for the last 22 seasons, right? He's been an all-star starter in just about each and every single one of those. He's been a captain in just about every single one of those. He's been the lead vote getter in just about every single one of those. And now he is not even in the top 5. LeBron James, of course, this happens when you get a little bit older, but he has not been playing that bad this season, right? You want to talk about a guy in LeBron who continues to power this team. He's been making highlight after highlight. This is the first time in 21 years. 21 years. He is not an all-star starter. That's not to say that he's having that's not to say that he's having a bad season. I mean, God, this Lakers team, I can't even imagine where they would be without him right now, right? LeBron James continuing to play great basketball, even at age 40, even at age 41. Right, he just turned 41 a month ago. He continues to play 22 points per game, 6.9 assists per game. He is having just an incredible season, 5.9 rebounds per game, 22, 7, and 6. I mean, at age 41, that's ridiculous. You look at a guy that's been able to dunk all over people, been able to make these blocks. He's still averaging nearly a block per game. You look at his stocks, 1.8 stocks per game. This guy's been ridiculous. 32% from 3, 50% from the field. And again, does not make the All-Star starters list for the first time in 21 seasons. Oh my God, what a career for LeBron James. But again, you're not going to put him in over Shai, who already has 33-point games on the year. That is also insane. Victor Wembanyama, who, I mean, just the alien. You don't need to talk too much about him. Jokic has been hurt. I might understand putting him in over Jokic, but still, Jokic is the best player on the planet, at least for now. Steph Curry has been carrying that Warriors team. They're in the play-ins simply because of his Herculean effort. I don't expect that to go on for too much longer, as his Robin to his Batman is no longer on the basketball court. We talked about that in the last segment. Luka Doncic, of course, deserves a lot of flowers. You talk about offensive numbers, you can't do that without talking about Luka. 33, 8, and 7. almost 9 and 8 right there. 33.3, 8.6 assists, and 7.5 rebounds. That's first for points. That's fourth for assists. And he's shooting 46% from the field as well. This is not your normal Luka Doncic season. I mean, it kind of is your normal Luka Doncic season, but you can't take him off this team, off this all-star starters team. If you're looking for a place to put LeBron, he'll make the all-star roster. I would be shocked if he didn't make the all-star roster. Again, he's still playing like an all-star, but not an all-star starter for the first time in 21 years. Everything really is coming crashing down. The end of an era in LeBron land, I guess, because it's been all over the place in Miami, in Cleveland again, and now in LA. Maybe he finds a new home. Maybe he wants to take that step up. We talked about his potential trade package in the last segment, potentially going to the Golden State Warriors. But a lot of other things going on, because it's not just the Western Conference all-star starters that have been announced. The Eastern Conference also had their starters announced. Jalen Brunson makes the list. Giannis Antetokounmpo makes the list. Tyrese Maxey, lots of guards. Cade Cunningham, lots of guards. And Jaylen Brown. Again, this is not by position. This is just by the top 5 vote getters. So that means a lot of these guys, and I think they all deserve it. Jalen Brunson is having a great season. Giannis continues to play great in that Eastern Conference. You obviously can't leave out Maxey, Cade, or Jaylen Brown. Those three probably, if there was an Eastern Conference MVP, those three would be at the top of the list for the Eastern Conference MVP right now. I really think they did a good job with the all-star starters, right? There are arguments. I mean, you can talk about snubs, but I mean, like, other than LeBron James, who else would you really put in there? Like, are we going to put are we going to put anyone over Victor Wembanyama? Are we gonna put anybody over? Are we gonna put anybody in over these guys that are in MVP discussions? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. I really do think they got it. Anthony Edwards is a name that I think could be put on this list. I think Jamal Murray is a name that could be put on this list. They're both having really great seasons. Jalen Johnson of the Hawks having a great year, but again, I wouldn't put those guys over anyone that's already on the roster, right? You look at that Western Conference roster, you can try and fit Anthony Edwards in. Maybe you put him in over Curry. Maybe you put him in over Jokic, because Jokic has not been playing as much because of his injuries, but it's not like Jokic doesn't deserve it. Like, if he had been playing, Jokic would be probably the number 1 vote getter. And the reason he's still number 4 is because you're talking about what he did before he got hurt. The only guy that I might put in would be in the West, LeBron James, because he's LeBron James, and Anthony Edwards deserves a big shout out there. But again, it's hard to put those guys in. Maybe over Curry and over Jokic, you put those two in, at least Anthony Edwards in. But again, I think these guys will all make the team. All of them will make the team. We're going to get the rest of the All-Star roster in a little bit. They're doing a new format, the world versus the U.S., so you kind of want that U.S. Olympic team on there. So I expect Kevin Durant to make it. I expect LeBron James to make it. I expect Anthony Edwards to make that team. The world is also going to have a pretty good team. Jamal Murray probably going to make it. Alperen Şengün will make it as well. Lots of stuff between those two sides. And then the young stars will also get a chance. The rising stars will get a chance. We'll get to see some big players from some upcoming teams looking for a spot in the All-Star game. But we will preview the All-Star rosters when they get out there. Congratulations to the players that made the All-Star starters. Again, I don't really have a problem with any of these lists. Again, the one thing, maybe you replace and you put Anthony Edwards in, and maybe you put LeBron James in for old time's sake. But at the end of the day, I think they did a really good job with these lists. I don't really have any gripes. I don't think there's any true snubs. The big story, LeBron James misses the All-Star starter spot for the first time in 21 seasons. His first time since his rookie year. That's crazy. That's insane. That is just why he's the GOAT. LeBron James continues to be amazing. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Triple Threat Show. You can find us literally everywhere on the internet. You want to find us on TikTok? You can find us on TikTok at @the_Triple Threat Show. You can find us on Instagram at 3threatshow _. You can find us on Twitch at 3threatshow, YouTube at Triple Threat Show. You can find us everywhere that you get your podcasts. That's right. You can find us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Audible, and more, Amazon Podcasts, CastBox, Podcast Addict, and Podchaser. You can also find us on Twitter at 3Threat Show over there. But thank you everybody so much for tuning in to today's episode. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We will be back tomorrow. We'll be ranking the top 4 teams still alive in the NFL. We'll be ranking a whole lot more, talking about the big stories from around the world of sports, as much more will continue to drop. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.